Carb, our enthusiasm. We're going to talk about carbs today. We're going to look at this. There's so much information, but I'm going to keep it really simple today. So today we're going to learn just a couple of concepts about carbs and why we're going to be so excited to eat carbs, whether you're on a weight loss journey or you just want to get healthy and we just want to eat more real food. It's Monday morning right now as I'm recording this, and we're coming off of a summer weekend, and I am such a lightweight now. I mean, I just have one drink. It was a Long Island iced tea. I won't make that mistake again. But my body just doesn't handle that stuff well anymore. So it's an opportunity for us to get back into eating whole foods, less fried foods, no alcohol this week, probably. And today we're going to start off with a recipe. It's called Wild Rice Salad from this book written by Mary McDougall and John McDougall. The recipe is from Mary McDougall. We're going to learn a couple of really key points from Dr. John McDougall. But first, we're going to look at this amazing recipe. Before I get into that, though, we do have a group fast coming up. So it's going to start on August 12th. It's for 5 days. We're doing the Fasting Mimicking Diet DIY style. And we're going to do this together. So it's going to be a nice intimate group. We're going to get together on video every single day of the fast. And we're going to go through our little mini metamorphosis. So we're going to do this actually 3 months in a row. So if you have never done this before, this is a perfect opportunity to get involved, get some group support, get your questions answered as best as I can, or I'll just send you to the resource. But the trick of doing this together is what could be a catalyst in a change of trajectory in your health and your wellness and your life. Because when we're well, everything changes, right? So this recipe is awesome for people who do not like to cook and even people who do not like to chop. I'm going to get a different knife to show you. Mine got a little chewed up from our dogs, but if you are intimidated by knives, I've got my chef's knife. This is smaller than your regular chef's knife. They're typically a few inches longer, but I love this guy. She's so cute, and she's just easier to handle. I don't need that extra blade, and so if you're not really into chopping, I recommend that you try, but this is another option. It's a plastic knife, but it's super sharp. This is super old. It lasts forever. And yeah, mine got a little chewed up from our old dog, but that's okay. And I'm going to use this today because I think that it's a lot more approachable, less intimidating. And you're going to love this recipe because it requires wild rice. That's going to be our carb of choice today. I'm going to show you in a little while why that is going to help us in a weight loss journey, but also a health promoting journey. This is also absolutely key for anybody who's trying to break their fast and you want to do it in a safe way. When I look online today, maybe it's just my search results, but I don't find good content when it comes to how to break your fast. It all seems to be really specific, almost prescriptive. Like you will wake up and the morning you break your fast at 2 hours and 3 minutes after you break your fast, you're going to take this supplement, and then you're going to take this random herb that is only found in this remote region in the world. What? No, we're going to refeed by nourishing our bodies with the optimal fuel, and that's glucose. It's glucose energy that comes from carbs. So for people who don't want to cook, I got this for you. This is a godsend, and it is just already frozen but pre-cooked rice. So what do I like about this? It's super easy. It takes literally 3 minutes that you nuke in a bag, seam side up. There's a seam. So I just literally stuck this whole thing in the microwave. This is microwavable safe. 3 minutes. It's nice and warm. It's so beautiful. This is already cooked. So this is 2 cups in one of these pouches. Of course, if you buy the dried rice and you cook it yourself, it's going to be cheaper. But again, if you're not going to bother with the cooking, just get these. We almost always have these in our freezer. We just take them out of the box and just put the bags in. And I already know it just takes 3 minutes. So let's plop this into our little thing. And we're going to make Mary McDougall's wild rice salad. I'm going to change it up a little bit because that's just what I do. And that's what you should learn how to do too, to accommodate your own taste buds and what you like to eat. So today I'm going to make mine a little Korean style. I'm not going to make it spicy, but I'm going to put Korean flavors into it because I just know that's going to guarantee that I actually eat the food. Okay, so I'm going to put about half of this in here. I'm not even going to measure it. I'm just going to put about half. And we're going to save this for my daughter's lunch because she's not going to eat this. Not that it's like super healthy. It is super healthy, but like it's going to be filled with greens. That's why. So we've got 3 cups of wild rice in here. Well, that was easy. Next, we need 1 cup of frozen corn kernels. So all we're doing is shopping in the freezer aisle so far. Okay, so I have this bag of roasted corn. You could do roasted, you could do not roasted, whatever. I've just kind of thawed it. And I think that's about a cup. This is an awesome thing that I bought at the Korean grocery store. It cost probably, I believe it cost $1.50. I've had it for about 10 years, possibly longer. And I just use it to wash rice, but obviously you use it to wash everything. And I like it because the water comes out of here and it keeps most of the food in there. Okay, so that's that. What else do we need? Now we need some scallions. We have about, she says, no, we have tomatoes first. We have 2 chopped tomatoes. Oh, look at these beauties. These are heirloom tomatoes. A little pricier, but I don't spend a ton of money, but I do spend a little more on food. So if there's something organic, I'll get it organic. If I see beautiful heirloom tomatoes versus just the regular hothouse variety or whatever, I just can't help myself. I have to do it. I have to do it. So we just have to chop these 2. Chop it any way you'd like. So I like this knife because it's, like I said, it's not very, it's really approachable, right? We're just going to cut that part off. And I know I'm being really basic, but this is who I am. I'm a basic bee. And I'm teaching people who are intimidated with cooking, intimidated by knives, think that they can't do something like this, but you absolutely can. Because the reality is you've done way harder things than go to the grocery store, pick up a few things, and put it in your grocery cart and bring it home. So here we go. And I know you don't have a lot of energy, but you know what? This is actually really fun to do. If you have energy, like my friend said, if you've got energy to make an unhealthy meal, you have energy to make a healthy meal. So we will stick this in here. Plop that in here. I just did it quite chunky. I'm gonna get my tomato juice all over my counter. So that was 1 tomato. Let's do our other tomato. So even though this is called a salad, the good thing about this kind of salad is you could put this on a restaurant menu and you could get enough energy and calories from eating this, and you're not going to go hungry. So yesterday we were at a bar/restaurant. It was absolutely beautiful. See, my cutting job is not nice. I'm not really used to this knife, but it don't matter because it's going to be delicious. There's nothing like fresh tomatoes, right? So we're at this restaurant and I order a bowl because it's under their entrees. And you think that there's going to be enough starch. That's what we need to stay full. If we're not going to eat a whole bunch of animal protein, we really need to eat our starch. And the bowl comes out and it's supposed to be filled with chickpeas. There's about maybe 12 chickpeas in this whole bowl, and it's otherwise filled with greens. And I'm thinking, my goodness, thank God there are other calories on this table, like our, French fries and our deep fried goodies, because otherwise I would leave and be hungry. And no one likes to be hungry, right? Right. Okay, so let's add our tomatoes here. Obviously, my hands are clean. Normally, I do put my hair up before I cook because my hair falls out, and that's no fun. That's gross, right? Food safety. You can put a towel under your cutting board so your cutting board doesn't move and slip around so much. Okay, so we've got three things. We've got our rice, our carbs, we've got corn, more carbs. We've got some fresh, gorgeous heirloom tomatoes. They're so good. They're so sweet, and they're the perfect texture. They're not mushy, but they're not crunchy, obviously, because they're ripe enough. And there's enough red. Last week, our recipe, I needed some red in there. And when I went back into the fridge to eat that salad, I wasn't very inspired, even though I knew it was good. And it was good. Our daughter took a bite and she was even like, oh, like, what? You like this? Amazing. Okay, now we need our scallions. I'm just gonna switch to my real knife just because. And these are our scallions. And just chop them up. Last week I said you could even use scissors. And if you don't think that's okay, and just take your scissors, just start chopping. This is what Koreans do. If you ever go and get a hot pot in a Korean restaurant and they take a bunch of scissors, they'll cut meat with scissors, they'll cut noodles with scissors, and definitely greens like this, chives, anything. So if you don't like chopping, you don't have to chop. There are ways around it, I promise you. But start chopping because it's fun. And you can do it. You can do anything. All right, so add those in there. That's going to add a nice burst of freshness. Yum. So far, I'm making a Korean kind of dish. Koreans definitely eat scallions, lots of scallions. Do we eat tomatoes? Of course, but not really. Corn, yes. Rice, obviously, yes. Next is a quarter bunch of watercress chopped, about 1 cup. Okay, so watercress, I got it in this little guy. And this is what it looks like. Isn't it beautiful? I was kind of like, what is watercress? I'm pretty sure it's something green. I had to Google it. But the reason why I like this recipe is not only is it super easy and we can buy things that are already cooked for us, right? It's like having a sous chef already because the work is already done. And it's cooked to perfection, this wild rice. And I like this recipe because I don't know that I've ever had watercress before. I may have had it as a garnish in some fancy restaurant, but I've definitely never bought it and cooked with it. And part of the game is making sure that we're eating a variety of whole plants. And this is a whole plant. And the reason why this is a whole plant is because I have not removed anything from it. I've not taken away its fiber. I'm not juicing it and removing most of its fiber. And it grows naturally from the ground, Mother Nature, and is packed full of nutrients, just packed. And what health and nutrition is when we get these nutrients into our bodies and our bodies are creating those chemical reactions. That is the definition of nutrition, according to somebody like T. Colin Campbell. All right, so it smells like nothing. I had a little taste last night just because I was so curious, like, what is this going to taste like? And I was kind of like a punch in the face. It's really strong. It's really strong. So I'm going to show you some taste buds on our tongue because that is chapter 3 of the McDougall Program for maximum weight loss. Dr. McDougall teaches us a little bit about the tongue. And if you've been exposed to his other teachings, he sometimes goes in depth about the human tongue and all of our taste buds and how that is just an indication of what we should perhaps be eating. Not perhaps, what we should be eating. So this is like, it's spicy. It's a little reminiscent of arugula. If you grew arugula in too much sun, it gets super peppery, spicy. And this is what this is. But it's good. I love arugula. So this is a very pungent, powerful plant. And sometimes when the flavor is that powerful, we lean into our innate power. We lean into our taste buds. There's a lot of bitterness happening here. And we'll look into that right now, actually. Why not? When we look at our tongue, this is my beautiful drawing of a human tongue. I know. Hold the applause. This is the tongue. We have sweet taste buds right at the tip of our tongue. We have salty here. These are my little dabs of salt. I put hearts around the sweet. Sweet. Lots of sweet taste buds. Sour. We taste our sour things over here. And bitter is at the back. And you might have heard some people say, well, the reason why we have to have bitter taste buds is because we have to know if something's poisonous and not eat it. So obviously not that this is like poisonous, but it's a really strong herb. And I bet that we can't eat too much of watercress. I'm just going to guess that. So this recipe calls for a cup total. And I think that that is a perfect amount with 3 cups plus 1 cup of corn. So when I look at this recipe, there's 4 cups total of a starch, of a carb, a whole carb that's going to nourish us. It's going to turn into glucose. And about a cup, I'm going to say is about half of this guy. So I'm just going to do that. We're just going to rip it. I'm going to let this guy settle in here. And then let's just roll her up. It's quite wet. Chop it up, just roughly chopped, and add these beautiful greens in here. And that's going to add so much nice, punchy flavor. Yum. Okay, what else? I need my kitchen towel here. Okay, after our watercress, we have a 1/3 cup of seasoned rice vinegar, and then she goes into her toppings, her flavorings. But that's pretty much it. We're done. We're just done. So I bought the frozen stuff. I bought these greens. If you can't find watercress, I would say like do something similar, or like any green. I just did these. Got a box of baby spinach and arugula. I gave them a nice little rinse. I know other people are like, just get a salad spinner. I don't want to add one more thing into this kitchen. I'm trying to like declutter and purge things, but I rinsed it in my little plastic rice cleaner thingamabob. And I've got our greens just sitting here on this clean kitchen towel. And it's just chilling out and it's drying on its own. So we don't need all the things. Like if you have a salad spinner, great. I have one somewhere in the garage. I just don't enjoy using it because it's just another thing to wash. So I'm just going to let that sit, do my thing, go answer some emails and put a load of laundry in and then come back to it and it's ready for you. So this is our salad, and Mary dresses it with a 1/3 cup of seasoned rice vinegar. Now, to me, too much vinegar is just too much vinegar. That's a lot of vinegar for me. I don't need that much. So I'm just gonna dab a little bit. And the way that I'm gonna turn this Korean is I'm gonna add a couple of things. So let's get our rice vinegar. If I have some, Okay. I do not have rice vinegar, but I will show you a little hack. 1 second. Okay. Let's move this out of the way. This is how we're going to dress our salad. So we've got our salad, right? Does it look good to you? Does it? I'm gonna use my pretty salad tongs. I really never entertain anymore, so I've got these pretty things. Let's give it a little bit of a mix. She looks nice. She looks really nice. Okay, and that's the kind of color I want to see. I want to see a variety of colors. It just looks so much more appealing. Now, for the rice vinegar, I don't have seasoned rice vinegar, so I'm just going to use organic white wine vinegar. And really all we need is an acid. So if you have a lemon, if you have lime, if you have apple cider vinegar, anything but like white distilled vinegar, I'm going to add just a little bit, and it lifts up the overall flavor of the salad. Just makes it nice and bright. Now we're going to make a Korean. We have not salted this bad boy, but I'm going to add seasoned nori. This is salty. This is not on the maximum weight loss program. However, you could be one of those people who I've also heard from. Thank you for commenting. You could eat a little bit of things that are like not on the okay list for the maximum weight loss program, and you can still drop weight if your body has extra body weight to drop. So I can tolerate a little bit of oil. I can tolerate a little bit of nuts and seeds, even though those are not on the maximum weight loss program. But then you'll hear from somebody like a Dr. Joel Fuhrman, and he will say that in order for us to lose even a little bit of weight, we need some of those healthy fats. So the nuts and seeds are critical to having your body function the way it needs to function in order to then lose that body weight. So we can't go overboard, right? All the calories count, all the nutrients count, but a little bit, Joel Fuhrman would say, you need it to lose weight. We're going to stick to the McDougalls for the most part and say we're not going to go overdose on the seeds. So this, because it's roasted, it's got the water stripped out of its natural whole plant, which is the seaweed. It becomes higher in calorie density. And calorie density is the number of calories in a given weight of food, right? So it's just a little bit. And again, I'm making this palatable to me, so I know that I'm going to eat it. If it's Korean flavored, I'm going to eat it. So we've got our nori. If that's too much for you, you can just do half the pack. But then realistically, where's that other half going to go? If no one in your house is going to eat it, then, I don't want to waste the food. This roasted nori is also really salty. So you might not have to add salt, because you just added some salt, right? Okay, so now I'm gonna add in some sesame oil. I know you're gonna be like, what? That's not on the maximum weight loss program? Correct. Oil is 100% fat. See how little I added there? Like you can't even barely see how much oil is in there. But I'm telling you, this is a magical ingredient, sesame oil, in that it packs so much flavor, so much flavor. You put salt and a little bit of this to flavor anything, you might become addicted to that food. That's how good that combination is. Okie doke. So if Joel Fuhrman is right, and you do need a little bit of fat, you could also add in a couple of roasted sesame seeds. Seeds, powerhouse of nutrition, roasted sesame seeds. I'm not going to add a ton. That's like not even, it's like a fraction of a teaspoon. And I just want some of these nutrients into my body. This looks really good. It smells really good. And Mary says that we should eat it over a bed of greens. So let's plate up. These greens I have not dressed. I don't think they're going to need any dressing because this is so dressed. So you can plate it to make it look really pretty and just pile this goodness right in the center. Clean that up a little bit. Ta-da! You could also top it with a couple of more seeds. This always just looks pretty. You could add in whatever else you would like, but essentially there it is. Oh, look how pretty that is. Oh my God, it smells so good. Let's taste test it. Do I need chopsticks? Do I need a fork? What do I need here? First, let's try this rice concoction. I no longer taste the watercress. Actually, it's a little tiny bit of a peppery flavor. I personally love arugula, and it's never too peppery for me, but that watercress is bitter. It's bitter. That's really good. Could it use more salt? Absolutely. I could definitely salt this. If I was serving this to people, like at a dinner party, I would definitely salt it a little bit just at the top, just on the surface of your food. That way you're not consuming too much salt, but it's hitting your tongue, right? Our tongue. The salty is right at the tip on the sides. I don't know. I just Googled that. But if the salt is right here on the tips of our tongue and we are eating the food and you get that hit of salt, everything just tastes better. I know a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people just do no salt, no oil, no sugar. That's a very extreme way to live. But if it works for you, it works for you. And so nobody can tell you what to do or what not to do. If it's working for you and your blood panel, let's say, looks great and all of your markers are phenomenal, then it's working for you, right? Yeah. That's really good. I will say this is a keeper. Now, Mary's recipe calls for the seasoned rice vinegar, chopped fresh basil. And so it's more maybe Italian, as you want to say, or just like North American, international, continental, whatever you want to call it. But this is how we take an awesome recipe, get a little bit of inspiration to eat a new plant like watercress. I would have never bought watercress. I've never bought watercress. But I'm so glad I did. That's the name of the game, trying to get more plants into us, a variety. It powers our gut. It feeds different gut bacteria. That different gut bacteria is only going to end up strengthening our immune system. And this is a good thing. There are people around me and they were very, very sick. Very sick. They thought it was the big C, not cancer, but the other big C. And I never got it. And I just think it's because my immune system is a little bit stronger. I think I've been eating a more variety of plants in the last couple of weeks than these folks. And I really believe that that's what happened. Of course, our immune system is constantly changing. Our gut health is constantly changing. But the trick, again, is just to get the food into us. So we have made our gorgeous little salad. And I have rice on my arm. So that's not a lot. I could easily double that, and then that could be taken to a potluck. I could add it to my bed of greens, and it's just such an easy way to get plants into us. Such an easy way. So I want to take a look at the nutritional content of this. Like, let's take a look at exactly what's going on. Now, exactly what's going on is trillions of chemical reactions are happening right now because of those plants. Thank you, plants. But I want to look at our carbs. And for this thing, we did 3 cups of wild rice, and that is literally, when you look at your macronutrients, and John will say, they're called macro because we need a lot of them, compared to the micro, where we don't need a lot. We just need a little bit. We just need a little bit, right? So macro, need a lot. Get into focus here, baby. Come on. And then 3 cups of rice. So 3 cups of rice has 105 grams of carbohydrate. Gotta get my face out of the shot. There we go. Then we've got 19.6 grams of protein. We've got 1.7 grams of fat in rice. I thought rice was going to make me gain weight, blah, 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 blah. I love it when I hear that because it's like, oh my gosh, we need to work together because I'm going to blow your mind. So in the green, I looked at what is the daily percentage that I need. So 105 grams, if I ate that entire salad today, I would only be getting about 40% of my carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, because it's a whole plant carb, right? We're not talking like refined carbs, even though I love refined carbs, but we're trying to be healthy here. We're trying to be healthier. So that's 37% of my protein intake. So I know that I need about 50 grams of protein a day. So that checks out about right. And then 11% of my fat. Now, that's only 1.7 grams of fat. Like, what the heck? That kind of freaks me out because there's so many things that contain much more fat. And so if 1.7 grams is only 11%, or it's already 11% of my total fat intake for the day, that's crazy. So I'm just looking at the carbs here. So obviously, even though rice and corn are carbs, they contain protein and fat. They contain a whole bunch of other nutrients in there. But that's where we get tripped up. Like you go to a restaurant, well, what are you going to have for your protein? Well, there's protein in every single plant. All of the essential amino acids that we need to eat are in every single whole plant food. So I'm just going to look at the carbs here because we're trying to carb our enthusiasm, because you can eat carbs and to drop weight. 3 cups of wild rice went into this recipe, 1 cup of corn. Those are our main points of starch. And so in that cup of corn, almost 32 grams of carbs, 4.2 grams of protein, only 1.1 grams of fat. That's 7% of my daily fat. So in this entire salad, I have at least 11 plus 7, 18% of my total fat intake. I added that sesame oil, which is like literally maybe a teaspoon, but oil is 100% fat. So that just raised my fat level up dramatically. So I'm going from 18%. I bet that probably made me go up to maybe 70% of my total fat intake. Just that little bit of oil. But hey, I'm going to take that because I personally don't have body weight to drop. I could. Some of you might look at me and you'd be like, yeah, you really need to. But others would say, no. I believe that I don't need to. So whatevs. Okay, so carbs, that's half of your carb intake, pretty much half of your protein intake for the day, and a fraction of your fat. In terms of micronutrients, we don't need a lot. So when we're talking 105 grams of carbs for the wild rice, 105 plus 32, that's 140, what? It's 137-ish, right? Ooh, fast math. 137 grams compared to like a 75 milligrams of vitamin C, for instance. So we're going from macro, need a lot, compared to need a little bit of the micronutrients. We don't need a ton of certain things. So that's where a lot of us get tripped up. When we talk about like, oh, where do you get your protein? Well, first, how much protein do you need? How much protein do you need? What is the answer? So if you're saying like, I'm concerned I'm not getting enough protein, or I'm concerned I'm not getting enough calcium, how much of that do you need to begin with? For me, it is about 52 grams of protein that I need every day, because I'm not a crazy athlete. If I was a crazy athlete, I would add on 10 to 20% on top of that. So maybe I need 60 grams, okay? But fiber in this meal, and I've added the tomato, I've added the scallion, I've added the watercress. I did not add the nori or the sesame oil in terms of the micronutrients, but there's tons of micronutrients in nori, right? So fiber, this whole salad, if I ate the whole thing, it would give me 25 grams of fiber, which is only 70% of my total fiber intake. Now, the healthy people, healthy doctors and healthy nutritionists will say, we need way more than like, let's say 50 grams of fiber. That's generally what I think the American Heart Association recommends, is everybody eat at least 50 grams-ish of fiber a day. The healthy plant-based doctors, most of them will say like more like 80 to 100. Most people don't get nearly 25 grams of protein a day. Like, I think it's more like 5 grams of protein a day. Or fiber. Most people don't eat whole plants, right? So iron, 29% of my iron intake, 13% of my calcium, 29% of my vitamin A, 82% of my vitamin C. That comes from only 75 milligrams. Where does that vitamin C come from? Because like there are no oranges in here. Where else does vitamin C come from? Comes from, and strawberries. Strawberries are huge in vitamin C. It comes from tomato, those 2 tomatoes, 1 cup of watercress, 2 or 3 scallions, and a cup of corn. That's where all that vitamin C comes from. And you would never think of tomato, watercress, green onions, and corn being rich in vitamin C. But this is why I love using Chronometer. We learn so much about food. Folate. A lot of people take folate supplementation. That is, folate is different because folate comes from a whole plant. So folate, we're getting 63%, potassium, 66%. Now, of course, there's tons of other micronutrients. And on top of this micronutrient list, there's also something called phytonutrients, phyto meaning plant, nutrients coming from a plant. There's no competing with nature when it comes to our nutrients. This is how I supplement. When people ask me, what supplements do you take? I will take a B12. I have it in my calendar now because I always forget. Put it in your calendar. Put it in your calendar. Use your external brain. My calendar is my personal assistant. It reminds me when my meetings are. It reminds me to get things done so I don't miss deadlines. It is our external brain that helps us. So we don't have to pack and keep everything in here and get confused and get bogged down with all this like energy drainage. So there are tons of phytonutrients here. Some experts who study phytonutrients will say there's thousands. And then you go deeper and you watch like a 3-hour podcast from Simon Hill. He's got like a world leading expert on phytonutrients who literally just studies phytonutrients and tries to discover more of them. They've now discovered millions. So this piddly little list is just touching the surface of what we are getting when we are eating something like this. And I didn't even add in the greens. You know, these greens are just packed full of nutrients. So those numbers would light up. All right. So today we're going to end with just a couple of comments about carbs because we're on chapter 3 and I'm going to quickly review and literally tell you that John says that our body craves carbohydrates because they are the body's primary fuel. Now, in our world today, there's a lot of like, well, I burn fat for energy, and that's what's up. The body, of course, can burn fat, but it will burn through our glucose stores first, and then it will go to the fat. Okie doke. Oh, hi, I58 Farms. Thanks for breaking it down. I just went to the only nutritionist in our county, a vegetarian, who could not break down my intake more and more. I am seeing the wisdom in the starch solution. Yes. Oh, I tell you that hits me like a ton of bricks because this book is old. I was telling a friend to read this book and she's like, when was it published? And I looked it up about 30 years ago. But you know, John McDougall, he always says like the truth don't change because the human physiology is a human physiology. And that is such an important question. Actually, props to you, I58 Farms, because for you to even ask, like, what is the breakdown? Like, what is my intake? You talk about how important protein is and calcium and vitamin D and vitamin B12 and everything. That list of stuff that Chronometer breaks down are essential nutrients. So essential meaning we have to eat it because the body doesn't produce it naturally on its own. That is a critical question. How much of that nutrient do we need, doc or nutritionist? The nutritionist probably knows a ton about so many things, but this is where we plug in and fill in those missing gaps by self-education. And I am not a doctor or a nutritionist. I may be certified in plant-based nutrition. I have been for over 10 years. And I just love learning about this stuff because it's freaking fascinating. But it's all about being self-educated. So I have a perfect blood panel, and that blows my mind because my lifestyle is not perfect. Yes, I drink alcohol. Yes, I eat deep fried foods. I don't eat a ton of junk food, but of course I eat junk food because I'm normal, but I do get a lot of these plants into me. That is the bulk of what I eat because I enjoy feeling good. I thought every year when I get my blood panel done, out of curiosity, I'm just curious to see how numbers shift. And I just think that that can't possibly fall in the optimal range, right? Because of the alcohol I drink and the French fries that I consume. But it does. So, and I don't even work out that much. I know everybody's a little bit different, but the need for carbohydrates, and I will tell you, the starch solution, my friend was like, it's 30 years old. I'm not reading it. I'm telling you, when you read this book, it is going to teach you so much about your innate power and just how the human body works and why exactly carbohydrates are so important. Now, of course, I'm not going to read you this entire chapter, but chapter 3, John McDougall gets into it. And it's short. It's a short read. It's really easy to read. It's not filled with all these scientific charts because, like, I'm not really into like getting into the minutia. Like, just give me the bird's eye view. I attach myself to people I trust. I absolutely trust Dr. John McDougall and his entire team. I think they're the most incredible healers. Of course, I don't know all the healers in the world, but they are great healers. But in this chapter, he talks about those taste buds, you know, at the tip of the tongue. At the tip of the tongue, we got our sweet taste buds, And then indicating that the sweet taste is the one we want to experience first and foremost. That's why it's at the tip, and that's why it's a huge chunk of our taste buds, as opposed to a little bit of salt, sour, bitter in the back. This is the bulk. Another thing that is not actually in this chapter, which blows my mind, but throughout his lectures, you will see that John will talk about something called, it's a digestive. Part of what's in our saliva breaks down whole carbohydrates. It might be called amylase, I forget. But the fact that part of our saliva innately breaks down carbohydrates might tell us that we were meant to eat carbohydrates. I just laugh because so many people are like, don't eat carbs. Anyway, more on the top of your tongue toward the front are the taste buds for salty flavor. Further back in the rear is the taste buds for bitter flavor. Okay, and anthropologists tell us that bitterness suggests poisons, so stay away from them. Sweet tastes are found in complex and simple carbohydrates. While being chewed, food is also mixed with saliva. Here we go. The saliva contains a digestive enzyme, alpha amylase. Okay, he does include it. Obviously, he does. Whose sole function is to break down complex carbohydrates into simple ones that can be easily absorbed through the digestive tract. The reason the body selects carbohydrates above all other nutrients is that it is our greatest need. Our greatest need, the human body's greatest need, is for fuel. That's why we need carbs, because they turn into glucose. Glucose powers every single one of our cells. Our brain takes up 80% of the glucose that we eat. I mean, he just goes on and on and on. When we eat an abundance of carbs, where does that go? He says that we burn it off in body heat. We might store up to 2 pounds of it in our muscles and our liver. He's always saying that that's stored invisibly because you do not see it as body fat. You will see body fat and some extra padding from the fat that we eat, because that fat is getting transferred into our fat cells, more or less. He says that basically if we eat so many carbs, like, don't be concerned about that because you're constantly burning the carbs, unless you're in ketosis and you're burning fat for energy instead. That's not the majority of us. There is an interesting show on Netflix, I believe. I think it's called Sprint, and they're following these top world athletes. And there's this one scene where they're all in the cafeteria and they're eating. And this one woman says, you know, it's so funny because people look at my plate and they're always curious what I eat, and they expect high sources of protein, big pile of protein. Meanwhile, girl's got like a plate full of pasta. She's eating refined carbs. But it just made me think, oh my gosh, all these pro athletes, these world athletes, they've got bread, they've got white pasta noodles with like no sauce. Like, what? Maybe there's like butter on it or something. But I just find that so interesting. Like you are literally getting the molecular carbs into your body. Better to have the whole carbs, obviously, but isn't that interesting? That's what they need. Anyway, compare getting an excess of carbs to getting an excess of protein. And John says on page 29 that protein, which can be used as fuel, right? I think the body will burn glucose energy first, which come from carbs. Then it'll go to fat if there isn't sufficient glucose. If there isn't sufficient fat, then it goes to protein. Using protein for fuel requires much greater effort to convert to energy. So it takes a certain amount of calories for the body to burn the glucose to use as energy. It creates more calories to use protein for energy. So that's a key concept that Dr. McDougall shares in many of his lectures. It takes the body more energy to do this versus that. A versus B. So it's always going to choose to be more efficient. So if it takes less calories to create a certain chemical reaction, that's what the body is going to choose for the most part. I know obviously this can get so specific, but we're just speaking in general terms here. Okay, well, that is a super important point. And what that always reminds me of is that our body is such an optimizing machine. We don't have to tell it, oh, conserve energy by burning the fat or the protein for energy. We burn the glucose. We don't have to say that to the body. The body is constantly, naturally, innately so intelligent that it's just going to do that. Thanks, body. All right. And then the last point I'm going to share about the carbs is that on page 35, he talks about carbs satisfy emotional needs. Now, this is huge because he's basically saying carbs have effects on the body that extend beyond physical health to emotional and psychological well-being. In fact, they change brain chemistry to relieve depression and decrease the hunger drive. Let's pause on the depression for a second, but decreasing the hunger drive, I mean, this is why we're here. We are trying to not be hungry. Some of us are trying to lose body weight. We're essentially trying to just eat better so we live abundant, nice lives, right? And when we do that, when we talk about how do we feel full, we need enough calories to feel full. We need a certain weight, right? Because the stomach has neurons. This is our second brain. And when it has a certain weight and certain bulk, right, it's kind of stretching the stomach out. And we have neurons, and those neurons are being sent into the brain, and it's telling the brain after a certain amount of time, typically we read like 15 to 30 minutes, then the brain is like, okay, now we know that we are full. That is also a hormone called leptin. So all of that stuff helps us be full. Another key component, though, is that we need nutrients. We need certain nutrients to feel completely full and completely satisfied. So, for instance, I looked up, where's my phone? I looked up a Big Mac meal because back in the day when I used to look forward to my Big Mac meal on a Friday night, woohoo! I used to get the large fries and the large drink and my little Big Mac. I say it's little because obviously in the ads it looks huge, but when you get it, it's kind of small. And I eat it. I love it. It's so tasty. Yum, yum, yum. I'm still hungry. And I think, well, maybe because, obviously I inhaled the thing in 5 minutes. So maybe I need more time for the brain to understand that it's full. Let's say I sit around and I wait. I'm still kind of hungry. So John will say, you cannot curb your appetite by eating fat. So that meal in itself is bananas. Big Mac nutrition facts. Let's just look at this because I have to see and remind myself how much fat is in. Okay, let's look at the nutrition summary. And the nutrition summary for a Big Mac meal, and this is just medium fries and a medium drink, there's 34 grams of fat. 34 grams of fat. I'm just going to remind us here that here we have in our little salad, with just the rice. 3 cups of wild rice is less than 2 grams of fat. 1 cup of corn is 1.1 grams of fat. So compare that. That's a big, big salad, big salad. And that's already looking at 18% of my total fat intake in this entire huge salad. There's just like no fat in here. Of course, I added the little sesame oil, but that's 18% of my fat plus the sesame oil in that Big Mac meal. What was that count? 34 grams. So we're talking 2.8 grams of fat in this salad makes up 18% of the amount of fat that I should ideally eat in a day to not start asking my fat cells to trap the extra fat, right? Because if I'm eating excess fat, it's going to trap it because it's trying to keep us alive. If John is right and the body's greatest need is for energy, then it's going to try to keep that energy. Now, Big Mac meal, it's interesting because when he used to say like, oh, you can't suppress your appetite by eating fat, I would be like, no, that's not right. If I eat something like deep fried, I get full. But there are other things going on. Hi, Adrian. Thank you as always. You're lovely. You're just lovely. Now, to touch on the depression point, he says it's because of serotonin. And when I Google it, serotonin, 80% of it is made up by the cells in our gastrointestinal tract. So the cells in our gut are producing serotonin, but they need whole carbohydrates to help it do that. The remainder of the serotonin, of course, that's our happy hormone, right? The rest of that serotonin is made in our brains, but so much of it is made in our guts. That's bananas. So, of course, he talks about like many women crave chocolate and other carbohydrate-rich foods just before their menstrual periods to relieve irritability and depression. Now, ladies, if you want to feel less irritable and less depression, or maybe we want natural sources and good amounts of serotonin being generated by our innate bodies, and what are we going to do? This is the easiest way to do it. So lots of people will say like, why must I eat this stuff? What is it going to do? What's the watercress going to do? Why should I eat that tomato? I don't like tomatoes unless it's in a tomato sauce on my pizza. Well, it's because you're getting tons of nutrients. It's delightful to consume. And that's why we're seeking this information out, because we want to feel well. We want to have great lives. We don't want to suffer, or we want to just start getting well. And the amazing thing is the body, it just reacts so quickly. So if you go all in, it's insane how quickly the body adapts and how quickly your body will change. We are going into another fast. And every time we go into a fast, I too get scared. This is going to be like, I don't even know, around 18, 19 for me. I have no idea, but it's a lot. I'll have to check my notes. But every time I go into it, I get scared because I don't want to be hungry. And it is really speeding up the whole weight loss thing. Okay, so you don't have to fast if you were to just eat in the starch solution way. Starch is the solution. Starch, carb our enthusiasm. We can eat rice, we can eat corn, we can eat potatoes, we can eat so many things. We can break the rules a little bit. Some of us can break the rules a little bit and add a tiny little bit of sesame oil to just make this delicious. And it's an easy way to eat greens, and everything changes. Your entire life changes. If you were to just eat this way, and you have excess body weight, that body weight will drop off. You don't have to go into a fast. I just love the fasting state because it's amazing. And it gets us closer to our natural state. Now, I'm going to figure out how to phrase that in a much better way. But for now, I will tell you our natural state is the best state. I feel like we're plugged into the universe without trying to sound too woo-woo. We are plugged into the universe and into its expansion. We understand what our core values are and what's most important to us. We feel optimistic. It's just this weird feeling that you can do anything. There is, it's definitely a wave. During the fast, you might hit a wall and you might get really angry, just like insanely angry. And for me, it's a shedding process. I shed certain emotions and I'm working through things that I didn't realize I had so much pent up anger about, but I go through those, I release them, and then I get into the fasting state. And on day 4 and 5, that's when things are the best. That's the best. And you have that expansive state. And that's how we are naturally built. Now, in comparison, if we were to just eat like this and never go a day without weighing our food and getting into a fasting state, because it's a lot of work. It's hard work. Like, you got to honor the struggle. But I think that the results happen so much faster. So August 12th to the 16th is when we're hosting round 1. I'm going to call this the trilogy. This is the catalyst package. That's round 1. A month later, we're going to do round 2 of the same fast. And then a month after that, in October, we're going August, September, October. We're going to do another week of the fasting mimicking diet DIY style. I actually have somebody who's just doing Prolon. So she's bought another Prolon kit, but she wants to join our fasting group. It's all about support. So whatever it is you're doing, it's all about support. But we're all going to get into the fasting state. We're going to stay in the fasting state. And then what's so critically important is we're going to come out of the fasting state in the optimal way. And the way that I believe is optimal, of course, is with the starch solution. Hello, right? So we have, in the fasting state, burned through our glucose. We're going to put that glucose back into our bodies, and we're going to do it with nature, because nothing can compare to the power of nature. And so all that to say is, when we are carbing our enthusiasm, carbing our enthusiasm, all this to say is we need to honor our innate, I'm going to call it power. Last week I called it wisdom. It is our innate power, and every single one of us has this in us. There's so many people who are like, that's not me. It's not going to work for me. Of course it's going to work for you, because you are a human being with a bunch of cells and a bunch of muscles and a bunch of tissues and systems. Those things come together and they build systems, like our immune system, our digestive system, right? Our muscular system, our skeletal system, our, did I say immune system, our nervous system. There's so many different systems. Walter Longo, who is the creator of the fasting mimicking diet, he says that fasting is tapping into another system that otherwise lies dormant. Now, again, not everybody has to fast. If you're not into it, don't do it. You can just eat the food and just be a normal person. But honoring our innate power, the way that we can do that is by eating the carbs. That's all, just the carbs. All right. So use Chronometer. It's free. You don't need the paid version. Obviously, you can upgrade if you want. But it's so satisfying to see all of these numbers light up, and just know that even though you see all these micronutrients lighting up, know that within the actual plant, when I mention those phytonutrient experts who are on, let's say, the Simon Hill episode, which I will link in the description because it is fascinating. When you think about these scientists discovering more and more and more about what's inside these plants that we take for granted, we do not give them the reverence that they deserve. But when they look into it, they just realize, oh, there's actually more. We thought there were thousands of phytonutrients. Turns out there's like 2 to 5 million. Some other studies said that there were 200 million phytonutrients in these plants. Like, what? What are you talking about? And what I interpret that as being is, what you are doing is you're looking into nature. You're looking into like the universe. You're looking at the stars and different galaxies. What do we find? We find that there is no end. There's just no stopping. It's so vast. Our brains cannot hold that concept. And so you can keep looking, scientists, but I think scientists will just never understand the vastness of this. And so, you know, if you're religious and you believe in a God, doesn't that just make sense? You know, that things are so vast, and this is what has been created for us, and that vastness exists in us. But so many of us don't believe that. We don't test it out. We don't honor our innate power. We don't feed it so it can work properly and be activated. So that's my story. Okay, so next week, we're going to look at fat. because that's the next chapter in this book, The McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss by John McDougall. We love you, John. We love you. We miss you. We think about you a lot, maybe too much these days, not too much, but wonderful man. Oh, and he's done so much for us. So we are going to pick through this book. I highly recommend you read it. It's an easy read. It's a fun read, and you're going to learn so much about your innate power. And then there's tons of recipes in the back. And of course, you can alter them just like I did to make sure that you eat it, to make sure that it aligns with your own taste buds. And it's just a fun process, okay? And then we're going to discover new plants. We're going to get new nutrition into us. It's going to unlock more powers. And this week, who knows what's going to happen, because I had some watercress. I really don't know. But I will tell you, whatever it is you want in life, so much more will be given to you when you unlock that innate power. You can't even guess what's going to happen, because it's always a surprise and delight. It blows your mind. Okay. So next week, it's going to be it's going to be a short one. I'm going to keep it really short next week. And I'm not going to do a cooking demo or show you anything, but I'm going to show you how I eat when I travel. So I'm going to be staying at an Airbnb, and I'm just going to show you my breakfast plan on the road. And we're going to talk about fat and a couple of specific concepts about fat and why we want to just keep an eye on that fat. Enjoy the Big Macs once in a blue moon, but know that that's... How many grams of fat was I? 34 grams of fat. So I'm going to blow past my total fat content of the day when I have one Big Mac meal. And obviously, I can't just survive off of just eating that, because I'm always hungry after that. All right. So with that, I wish you an awesome week. And I'll see you here. Same time, same place. All right. Bye. Carb it up, baby.